Hi, I'm Ted Padova, and I decided to make this video after I reviewed a lot of YouTube videos talking about how to create a PDF form. And I think what's online is fine if you create one or two forms, but the techniques and the way to go about it that's discussed in a lot of those videos is really not for forms designers. The one thing I can tell you is you should not, and I mean never ever, use Acrobat to automatically populate a form. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the best ways to create form fields and why it's going to be to your advantage. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I have a form on screen right now, and you'll notice that I have a text field already created on this form. There are no other fields that appear on this document. So I'm going to double click to open up the field properties, and you'll notice that the very first tab is General. And one of the most important things that you can deal with forms is to handle the naming conventions and making those naming conventions acceptable and proper for Acrobat PDF forms. And you'll notice that what I have here is a parent-child relationship. A separated by a period to the second item is first. This is the parent is A, and the child is first. You want to name most of your fields with parent-child relationships. If you have a single field that you don't use a parent-child relationship, then I would recommend using camel case, which is lowercase for the first word, the second word being uppercase with no spaces. So naming fields is really one of the most important things that you can do with creating an Acrobat PDF form. I'll go over to appearance here, and the other thing I want to deal with is setting my text font size to a point size that's going to be comfortable within the height of this field that I have here. And for this field, I think 10 points is going to work fine. Then I'm going to move over to the Format tab over here. And you'll notice that this form is a little bit difficult to see. I've got a light blue fill color on the form field and a dark blue on the background. You may or may not have forms that have different colors, but upon occasion you may get a form that you have to deal with populating that has some color issues. So what I want to do is create a fill color when I tab into the field, so that it'll make it easy for the form filler to fill it out and clearly see the text that they're typing. And what I have here is a JavaScript. And you can go ahead and take a look at this. I'll leave it on screen for just a moment if you want to copy it or take a screen capture. But you can see that I have a variable called color RGB. Event target means that I'm going to put the value of what follows in this script in the field that I'm working on. And then I talk about having that color, that variable with a fill color with RGB values 255, 255, and 0. If you have an issue with colors and you're not sure what the RGB values, you can use Adobe Photoshop, Photoshop Elements, or an image editor and take a look at what their translation for color values are so that you can get a handle on what color you want to create for your form fill. And we can also change text colors. But at this point, I'm just going to deal with the fill color. Okay, so I've set these attributes for this field. Now what I'm going to do is duplicate this field. I'm not going to use the form fields up here and create a new text field because I want to capture all the attributes of the field I just set and use that to populate my other fields. Now I can easily duplicate this field by holding the Alt key on Windows, the Option key on the Mac, click. I'll hold a Shift key down to constrain the movement and drag down, and you can see that I'll nudge this a little bit. I've created a second field. Now I'll open up my field properties here, and I can keep this dialog box open while I'm working on fields, so I don't have to keep opening it. So the next thing I'm going to do is change the name. I'm going to leave the parent name the same, and I'm going to change the child name. So I'll call this last. Okay, so I've got a first and last name. And then I'm going to duplicate this field again and bring it into the proper size here, and I'm going to easily create 4 form fields automatically in Acrobat. But before I do that, I want to change my value here. I'm going to call this ADDR for address, just an abbreviation there. Hit enter to accept it, and then I'll come over here and open a context menu. I'll right click on the form field, and then I'll choose create multiple copies. And what I want to do is create 4. Okay, so up in, when the dialog box opens, I'm going to type in 4 for my vertical fields down, and then I don't want 2 columns, I want 1 column, and I'll just click OK. And you can see that those form fields populated very nicely. All right, and what we'll do is we'll just size this one. And if you have trouble with manipulating fields, you might want to zoom in. You can see that I can nudge these a little bit here. Okay. And we'll just get that comfortably. So now, next thing I'm going to do, let's see, I want to size these, get them looking somewhat relative to the form design. Okay, now the next thing I'll do is duplicate this field, hold my Alt or Option key down, click and drag, and I'm duplicating this field. Once again, I'm using the same attributes in my form field, and I'm going to call this field, we'll call this A.mobile. Hit enter to accept it. Once again, I'm going to Option or Alt click and drag, and we're going to call this one .landline. Once again, enter, and then I'll just duplicate the field again. Now, this may initially seem a little tedious to you. You know that if you go into Acrobat and automatically populate the form, you would have had the forms up already. But bear with me just a second, because I'm going to show you how you're going to save some time later on. Okay, so we'll name this field email. Once again, enter. And we've got a couple of text boxes down here. This one, I'm going to type in years. And then I'm going to duplicate that field. We're going to call this one months. Once again, enter. Let's scroll down, and now you can see that I have a table. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows that I want to populate, not counting the totals down here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is duplicate this field. Once again, that's Option on the Mac, Alt on Windows, click and drag, and we'll bring that field over into position over here. And next I'm going to change the name, so we'll change this to, I already have years up there, so I'm going to call this position years. And enter to register the name. Then we'll move over to the next field. Let's call this one just simply a position. So we'll take off years off of that. Once again, strike enter. And then finally, on the last column, on this side of the form, what we'll do is name this one a salary. So let's take off position, type in salary, strike enter to register that. Now before I leave this form field, what I want to do is add some additional formatting. I'm going to come over to the Format tab. What I do to change the attributes of this is not going to disturb the JavaScript here. And what I really need to do is convert this text to a number so that Acrobat can then calculate the values in this column. So what I'm going to do is go to Custom here, click on it, open up the pop-up menu, and choose Number. And for the number attributes, I want 0 for the decimal places, and I'm going to leave the separator style with a comma and accept that. So now we need to duplicate these fields, and we have a table here. That's easy to do. I'm going to select those 3 fields. Once again, I'm going to open a context menu, right click, and I'm going to choose Create Multiple Copies. Now you know we've already got 10 rows here that we want to populate, so I'm going to use 10 for my vertical, and I don't want 2 columns, I want 1, and I'm going to click OK. At this point, what we do is we select the bottom row and move that into position. What Acrobat is going to do is calculate the distance from the first row to the last row and set all the other fields equidistant apart from each other. And we do that easily by selecting, you have to do this 1 column at a time, not the entire table. If you select all 3 and you try to distribute them, Acrobat's going to scatter those fields. So do it 1 column at a time, right click, choose Align Distributor Center, and we're going to distribute vertically. Once again, select the column, open a context menu, and distribute vertically. And in the 3rd column, we'll do the same thing. Distribute vertically. At this point, we've got 2 more fields remaining. I'm going to go to the last field in column 3 here, select that. I'm going to hold Option or Alt, depending on your platform, and drag down to duplicate it. And we're going to call this one, I'm going to call this A total, because that's the sum of that column, the fields in that column. Okay, then we're going to I'll deal with the calculation in a moment. Let me create both fields. So I'm going to select this field, Option, Alt, and drag, and we're going to call this one A average, and enter. Okay, so I'll go back to my total field now, and I'm going to select it and open up the Calculate tab. And this is one thing that makes things very easy when you deal with parent-child naming conventions. I'm going to go to Value is the sum, and what I'm going to do is go Pick, and what I want to pick is the parent name and the immediate child after parent. So that would be A salary. I'm going to click on Pick, and what I'm going to do is go down to A salary and select this item here. Make sure that you don't select anything after salary because these are all the individual child names here. So I'm going to click on the check mark there, and that will sum the total. You'll notice that the 0 is on the left. So what I really need to do is align all of these right because they are numbers. So let's go over to Options over here and choose Right. Notice that when I select multiple fields, I do get 4 tabs up here that I can change attributes in one of those tabs for all the selected fields. We do have one caveat, and that is with this field down here, A average. If we want to create a calculation, I'll open the Calculate tab over here so we can see it. If we want to create a simplified field notation, unfortunately, simplified field notations cannot be performed on hierarchically named fields, i.e. those with parent-child names. So therefore, we either have to change the name of the total field, because that's what we need to use to determine the value we're going to divide the 10 by, or we need to write a JavaScript. And I'm going to hold off JavaScript for another tutorial because I can explain a few more things related to JavaScripts that you can easily copy and paste in documents. So what I'm going to do is come over here to this total field. I'm going to go over to General, and I'm going to take off the parent name. Now, that's not going to change anything as far as the calculation goes. If we come over here and we take a look at calculate, you see that the calculation, the sum of these fields is still the same. Now we can go down to this average, and I can create a simplified field notation, and it's quite easily done by taking the field name, which is total, and that's going to be divided by 10. And that's all you need to do. The formula is very similar to the kinds of formulas we would use in spreadsheet applications. So I'll click OK. And now, at this point, what we want to do is test our fields, make sure that everything works before we proceed. So let me close my panel over here, and we'll get the hand tool, come down and type in a value. Now notice when I click in this field, that JavaScript that I wrote earlier in the Format tab in the Properties panel, I converted the color, the fill color, to a different color. In this case it's yellow. So the form filler can easily see the text as they type. So let me put in a salary value here. I'll say 35,000, and then click. You'll notice that the attributes that I defined for a number prevail. I've got a comma separator here, and I'll put in another value here. Let's say 87,500, and this person is just accelerating in their salary each year. And you'll notice down at the bottom I have a summation here, and I also have an average, those 3 years of salary appearing in the annual average field. Okay, so it looks like the form works. At this point, what I want to do is reset the form. I'm going to clear all the field data, and I can easily do that with a JavaScript. So I'm going to open up my JavaScript dialog, and I'll just go Control or Command J to open it up, and I'll go and type in a quick JavaScript to clear the form. This is this reset form, and then a parentheses and a semicolon, and I'll just strike enter, and you see that all the fields are cleared. Just a quick script to clear the form. Okay, let me zoom out, and at this point what I want to do is I'm going to copy these fields, and I can't paste them in this same document because I need to change the field names. And if I attempt to change the field names on my pasted fields, it's going to change the names on the other fields. So I need to paste these into another document. I have up in my file menu a JavaScript that I wrote that has a new menu command. And then in the submenu command, you can see that I have various sizes of pages. Now, you probably don't have this JavaScript, so what I recommend is you just take an Adobe InDesign file, a Microsoft Word file, or a text file, create yourself a blank PDF document, and then you can use that to test your fields, JavaScripts, and different routines. Just use it, keep it around as a test file. In my case, I'm going to create a letter portrait document. But first I want to select my fields before I do that. So I'll come over here, and I'm going to select my fields. I'll go to Edit, Copy. Then I'll go ahead and create my new blank document. Zoom out, and I'm going to go Edit, Paste. And you can see that I pasted these files, form fields, into this new document. And what I'm going to do is move these over into position before I do anything else, so I don't forget that. I want it to be relatively the same position that I'm going to paste in the other document. Acrobat's going to retain the position. So before I do that now, what I need to go go back to my forms, and I want to go to this area in my panel over here where you see A to Z. If I click on this down arrow, you can see that right now the fields are organized according to tab order. I want to change that to alphabetic order. And when I do, you see that I have the parent name A here. This is what I want to change because the other fields I have in my document are also named A. I want these to be unique names, so I'm going to just double click. All right, and I'm going to delete the A and enter B. I'll hit enter, and now you'll see that these form fields, I'll zoom in here so we can see that. You can see that these are all named B. All right, so I'll copy fields, go to edit, copy, come back to my form design, and now I'm going to paste those fields into this document. So I'll go edit, paste. And you can see that they came pretty close to being in the right position. I'll just use my arrow keys to move over and then down. And the very last thing I need to do is, for some reason, I missed a field down here. And that can happen to you. So I'm going to zoom in here. I have to change the attributes of these fields anyway. So let me fix this table here, just make it a little bit better. Okay, and it looks like my total. I'm going to go and copy this, and I need to rename this. I'm going to call it B total. And in my calculate tab over here, what I need to do is change the sum here. I don't want to sum the A salary because that's the fields in the left side of this document. I'm going to go to pick, and I have to take A salary off. So here's the check mark. I'm going to deselect that, and now I'm going to go down to B salary. And there it is. I'm going to check that. Now it's going to sum these fields. Then I'm going to come down to my average down here, and what I want to do is change this value because it's no longer total, it's B total. So I need to go to edit, and we just need to put a B there and click OK. And there you have it. At this point, our form, I could do a little more polish here on aligning my fields. As when you zoom in, you can see a little bit better how these fields are aligned. So as I'm zoomed in, I can see that I need to polish that up a little. I'll go and hit Control or Command 0 to fit in window. At this point, I want to save my document, so you choose File, Save. I already saved a copy, so I don't need to do that. You can see the entire point of this video is to demonstrate to you how you can save some time. And the way we save time is, you'll notice that I added attributes to all of these fields and duplicated them. If I let Acrobat create the form fields for me, I would have to individually go to every single field on the page and open the field properties and set the color value that I changed in the Format tab. I could globally change the point size for the text, but I couldn't add the JavaScript. Down here, you can see that it was very easy to create a calculation because I have parent-child names, and it makes all the calculations in your document much easier. You can really appreciate what's being done here if you write a lot of JavaScripts in your documents, because I can go to fields and I can create arrays and loops and things of that sort very easy by using parent-child names. So once again, I encourage you, don't let Acrobat create the form fields for you. Do that manually, and in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of time. One other thing I might mention is you should create a couple of blank documents and fill those up with some form fields. One thing that you're going to use over and over again is identifying information. So you might have some form fields that say client.first, client.last, client.addr1, addr2, addr3. Create some form fields with fields that you use over and over again, and it'll save you time because you can easily copy and paste, as you see in this video, from one form to another and position those fields quite easily using Acrobat. I hope this is of some help to you. Once again, I'm Ted Padova, and I wish you all the best in all your form designs and form creations.